Joannis, and today I wanted to chat with you about a presentation that I made called Reversal, art depicting reversal of perspective. It's based off some of my writing. You may be wondering why, or what's the point of these images? Why should I care about this kind of information? And while you don't have to care, you can certainly click out of the video. That's entirely your choice. I don't know about you, but for me, I love learning about other people, about other cultures, expanding your mind. Learning these types of things can allow you to gain a broader perspective, to educate yourself about things that you had never previously heard of. Insight into other people's life experiences are the things that ultimately make the world a better place, because you learn to connect more with people and to become more empathetic. I mean, for me, I think whether you're my friend or an acquaintance, someone I see in the street, I am always interested in knowing your story and what are some things that you've experienced. I'm not going to explain or go through every single image. I thought it would be nice to chat about the images and hear a bit of perspective. I'm very much so a visual learner, just a visual person in general. And I love seeing how different pieces of work or art can provoke certain emotions, and it's interesting to know why. And of course, when it comes to art and images, it will be different for everyone, because of course we all have different backgrounds and different exposure to people and life. So we may think different things, but it's always interesting to share perspective and learn more about one another. The other interesting thing I think about what it can provoke in us is to really dissect a bit our thoughts and our reaction, and where does it come from? Is it right? And it's just an opportunity to evaluate your mindset and have a chance to think, okay, well, if this is not right or it's not nice to think this way, then I have the opportunity to change that. I have the opportunity to better myself and evolve. And who doesn't want to evolve? I mean, maybe some people don't. I don't want those kind of people around me. If you don't already know, I am mixed. I have a black dad and a white mom, and they are both multicultural. I was raised in a very multicultural family. And for me and my experience, diversity is default. I grew up with a black brother and a white sister with red hair. This is what I was born into, and that's my norm. For me, when I'm in a diverse space, that is the atmosphere that I am most comfortable in. And the reason why I feel most comfortable in a diverse atmosphere is not only because it's something that I was born into. Being in a space that is diverse is just so much funner. It's interesting. You meet so many different types of people. And you could even meet a person that you come from two completely different cultures and speak completely different languages, but you might have the same humor, and you might crack up laughing at the same things and not even speak the same language. I do understand that for some people that is not their experience and it's not their norm. We can't help the family that we're born into, where we were raised, and the country or town that we were brought up in. Some people grew up in a town where it is all white or all black, and they maybe have not ever seen a white or black person until they reached a certain age. This is perfectly normal for some places, and there's nothing wrong with that. For many brown-skinned individuals, the pictures depicted in the slides is very much so normalized. And keep in mind, when I say normalized doesn't mean it's okay or that it feels good to see these things or absorb and experience these things. It's just something that becomes sort of a part of your life experience. I will put some of the images up here to my side. 3 of the images in the slides, I based those off of a study called the doll test. You may have seen this video, you may be familiar with it, but it's basically A series of experiments conducted in the 1940s by psychologists Kenneth and Mamie Clark to investigate the psychological effects of segregation on African American children. Now, mind you, this effect is certainly not exclusive or limited to the American population. It is definitely a worldwide effect in different parts of the world, different countries. If you have not seen it, you can Google it, go on YouTube and type the Clark doll study or doll test, and you will see what it's about. It was pretty sad to see that these little kids were already affected by racism, and it's important to understand this concept, and that even though this is an older study, this is still very much so prevalent for a lot of people today. The one with the elevator, and you can see the brown people and then the white person, depicts a lot of the experiences that a brown individual has experienced, and it's certainly not exclusive to an elevator. It could be anywhere, any space, any room. This type of reaction has happened to me before. In fact, it happened a few months ago when I was with my mom and a friend, and both of them white. We were walking at a park, and I was getting something out of my bag, so it kind of slowed me down from walking with them. So they were walking and talking ahead of me. I'm always very aware of my surroundings, and I remember there were these two white ladies on a picnic blanket. We walked to the side of them when my mom and my friend walked by them. They just were talking and they were fine. And then as I approached the same area that my mom and my friend walked by them, both of them looked at me, and they had an open backpack and they closed it and tightened it and then brought it in front of them. Just shook my head and thought, oh, if only they knew. I have zero interest in your bag. I mean, it made me think a number of things. I just thought, like, you don't know me, you're making assumptions about me. You know, you didn't do that when my mom and my friend walked by. How silly that is. They could be doing that and not even knowing my financial status. They could live in an apartment and I own the apartment building, and maybe they don't even know that, and they're thinking, oh my gosh, this black girl is walking by, I don't trust her, she might steal something out of my bag. This is just ridiculous and very ignorant. You definitely notice these things. And of course, you're not going to react to every single thing. Some of the situations, if it's just how you're being treated in a facility or a business, then of course you have every right to speak to management and express that you were mistreated. Or if it's really a situation where you feel like you should stand up for yourself, that's okay too, depending on how you feel and the situation. But I can tell you, these types of moments, they don't feel good. And overall, I'm a very kind and optimistic person. On a day where you're just having a good day, you're enjoying whatever, the sun, the weather, and the people around you, and then you have kind of this moment like that. I mean, it doesn't make you feel warm and fuzzy on the inside. You notice it, and yeah, it sucks. We're still human, and we do absorb other people's feelings and energy, actions, inactions, reactions. We are not robots, so you can, with time, develop a sort of thicker skin when it comes to these types of things. But it still has an effect. It has a conscious effect, a subconscious effect, a psychological effect, and it's always good to know, like I said, what other people are going through. The other nice thing with being aware too is, say if we reverse the concept of you and I are hanging out together and we're going, let's say, shopping. If the person working there is prejudiced and they're like staring at you while you're shopping, you know, or following you and pretending that they're adjusting things next to you. Every like place that you stop, they're just, that they coincidentally have something to put away on the shelf next to every place that you stop in the store. I'm gonna notice that, and I'm probably gonna stand up for you as my friend, because you shouldn't have to go through that alone, and people should not be treating you that way or thinking that it's okay to treat you that way. So if you're white and I'm aware that some people stereotype you as a thief, then that's going to make me better understand your experience. And if I'm with you and I encounter some of these types of incidents, I'm going to be more aware rather than just to be oblivious and just not noticing anything at all, while the sort of covert, less obvious. If I'm aware of your plight, then I will better spot these things and be able to help you. These are the things that make us better people. The next image is, this is diversity. Wow, guess I'm the only one. You know, and the response that you see there is, well, let's not make it about race. But there's no diversity. Yes, we have you on our team, but how do I stand a chance when no one looks like me? And again, this is a depiction that is very much so real. I've had many jobs in my life, and there are some jobs that I've worked that I was the only non-white person. And of course, as soon as I walk into the office and they give me a tour of the place and I get to meet the people, there's always just this feeling of like, you know, maybe I might be excited at first, and then, you know, I go in and I'm like, okay, cool. Guess they don't have any brown-skinned people here, so they must not value diversity. When it comes to like the workplace, and if it happens to be a place that it is the whole staff, the whole team is all white people, it's just gonna make me question their values and or their hiring practices, you know, especially if it's a place that is diverse and it's not like it's a town where, you know, maybe there's only 2 black people in this town, so everything will predominantly be white, or vice versa, black. But if it's a place that is diverse and that's what your staff or your team looks like, I mean, I'm definitely gonna wonder, what is their deal? Why aren't they hiring more variety of people? There are a lot of people that think that a brown person should not be bothered by a lack of representation. And that's a very selfish mindset. It's very inconsiderate to only think of yourself and not think about other people and how certain experiences or things might make other people feel. But yes, you should be bothered by the images. Representation makes everybody feel better about themselves. The happy shopping one, if you look at all the pictures on the front of the hair products, you can see it's all different shades of brown-skinned individuals, and there's only 2 products on the shelf that have white women on the front of the products. What would you feel like if you walk into the beauty section and 90% of the beauty products are all for brown-skinned individuals, curly hair, afro hair, and there's just 2 bottles, 2 options for you, and they're not even quality products. They don't even work well for your hair. How would that make you feel? And that's the thing, is you may have been living your entire life having never noticed it at all. And that's the thing, that's a lot of people's experiences, is whether they live in a place or they travel to a certain place and they might need to go buy a product, maybe they ran out of something, and then that's what they end up having to face, is just yet another reminder that you're not that important. You know, we don't really value you, so therefore that's why we don't have the options for you. And even if we have a limited option for you, it's not even quality. This is very real, and while we have come a long way when it comes to hair products, and you definitely, in some places, you definitely do see a lot more products for curly hair, afro hair texture, but this is still very much so prevalent in some places. The leadership wall one, this is very real. Again, I have worked multiple jobs where there's a leadership wall or even a leadership hallway that dates back to decades of leaders. And I remember one job that I had a hallway. I was on my break walking around and just admiring the leadership wall and thinking, wow, I cannot believe how many photos they have in this hallway. And I could count on one hand how many brown people there were in the pictures. And so, of course, again, when you see this, it's not like you see this and you think you feel good. You notice it. You notice it whether you want to or not, and it doesn't feel good. I mean, it's not like you're thinking, wow, like there's other people just like me and I feel so welcome and I feel seen, and you don't feel that way. You just feel like, okay, there's like no diversity, number one, and even if there is diversity at the job, I might just be looking at that and thinking, well, if you're brown, you will not ever be a leader or make it on the leadership wall, or if you do, it'll be super rare. I have been in rooms and places where I am the only mixed person. Now, in my case, when it comes to being in a space with other people, my life experience means that I have never been in a room with all mixed people. The closest that I've ever come to being in a space where everybody more or less looks similar to me, I would say 2 places that I've ever experienced what that feels like, and that is Panama and Hawaii. I can say that it's a lot of brown shades. I have also been in spaces that are all white and I'm the only person that is not white. I know that mixed people are considered black, but I have been in spaces where everyone is black and I'm the only mixed person. It's not uncommon for me to have experienced people in my life telling me what I am. Now, I did say that the environment or atmosphere that I am most comfortable in is a diverse atmosphere, meaning different shades of people, different languages, different cultures. This, for me, tends to feel most like home. I would say after that, if someone asked me, do you feel more comfortable if you were in a room with all white individuals or all black individuals? My response to that is, it really depends on how open the people are. If they are open, loving, kind people, the color in this particular case really doesn't even matter, because the energy that they're sort of radiating is just an energy of love and acceptance and openness. I've been in a room where you can just feel the tension and you can feel that they're uncomfortable with you. When it comes to ignorance and racism, I've experienced it on both sides, and it doesn't feel good either way. It's definitely a lot more prevalent and a lot more common with white individuals. Put up a sort of fight for what's fair, all because of how you were born or your skin color. That's where it's just really ridiculous. It's definitely very telling. Of course, now that I'm older and more aware, it's very telling to see when white individuals are presented with this sort of education and awareness, and they have the choice. That they don't have to care. They can just wake up the next day and go on about their life. It's not their experience. Some people that just don't understand that not caring or ignoring can be very harmful, and while you may not feel the effects of that harm, other people do. For me, I always appreciate, I don't care what color you are, but I always appreciate those who are open-minded and just interested in learning about all of our differences. This type of awareness, this is what has an impact on life. This is what helps to make life better for everyone, so that even if you are not experiencing these things, it's still good to understand it. Should you ever witness it, you will then have that knowledge and know that you can better comfort a person, or you can help stand up for a person because you know that you saw something. And this is so important because some people have a prejudice, and you could sit there all day and try to tell them, well, that's not right and you shouldn't treat people like that. But if it comes from someone that doesn't look like them, they may not value it. Whereas if it comes from someone that does look like them, they may actually think, maybe I am wrong about the way that I think, or I was wrong for saying what I said or doing what I did. And so while we can't force anyone to change, the thing is, we all have the power within us to potentially spark change in other people. There's always a chance that a person may hear it from you, and it might be the same thing, but because it came from you, you may have an impact on changing that person for the better, whether you realize it or not. And another reason why this matters is this is very much so the reality and a part of many people's experiences. And for example, when I was around 6 years old, I had been begging my mom to do ballet classes. In my play clothes, I even had a tutu with the tights, and I mean, I was ready to start ballet class and become a ballerina. I used to dress up as a ballerina in the house and just walk around that way and pretend that I was a ballerina, even though I had not yet taken any classes. My very first class, now mind you, I was a very, very shy kid, to a point that the shyness felt like a handicap, because there'd be things I'd want to do or I'd want to say, and because I was so shy internally, I would not do them, or I would even get mistreated and not say anything because I was too shy to say anything. So doing these types of things, like starting something new where I'm gonna be around people, was a really big deal. And I just remember being so excited for entering the room and seeing all the other girls and thinking, okay, I definitely noticed that there was nobody that looks like me. Everybody was white. I was the only brown girl. And when I say this, you have to understand that if you've never experienced this, this is not something that someone teaches you, like, oh, when you walk into a room, the first thing you should do is look and see if anybody looks like you. It's just something that you naturally do. And especially when you might be different or there's not a lot of other people like you. So it's just ingrained. You're gonna walk into a space and you're gonna notice. It's the same thing if you're a white person. You're going to any event, a room, a space, a concert, whatever, and you walk in there and you are the only white person, I mean, you're gonna notice. Now, whether you feel good or bad, that's a different story and it's dependent on multiple factors. But when I walked into this ballet class, I thought, now I'm gonna be a real ballerina. And I remember having my hand on the ballet bar and we were starting to learn the exercises, you know, plie, releve. And I remember at one point, I had my hand on the bar and the teacher, you know, would give instructions and she might move from one side of the room to the other. And I guess she moved, you know, and I looked, and when I moved, my hand slid over and grazed the girl next to me's hand, and she wiped her hand on her tights and just quietly said, "Ew, poop skin." You know, and being an adult now, you might think how dumb and ridiculous that is. I will never forget that day because I never wanted to go back and it made me feel terrible. There's so many things I didn't fully understand or didn't know how to articulate. At that age, it was more about what something makes me feel like or makes me feel bad about myself. And that's what a lot of it is for many years when you're young. This is very impactful and it is traumatic because there's already a lot of other things that you're experiencing as a brown individual. I am very proud of who I am. I'm proud of being mixed. I'm proud of having multicultural parents and growing up in a very multicultural family and international life. I love that. That for me is home. And, you know, growing up, it is not something that I always understood. It is not something that I felt confident about as a young girl. I went through a number of experiences and I didn't know that I experienced racial trauma until I started therapy around when I was 30. And once we got into my life story and the therapist was learning about me and different things that I experienced in life, she is the one that really helped me to actually name these experiences and to be able to articulate exactly what happened. I picked up all the details of my environment and I realized that, wow, life is easier and better when you're white. There's a lot of micro things and big things that happened that led me to think that way. So she is the one that taught me that I experienced racial trauma, amongst other traumas in life. This is a part of why many brown-skinned individuals, especially when they're young, they internalize the way the world is, the way your environment is, the way that you're treated. You absorb all of that. Conscious, subconscious, psychological level, and it affects you whether you realize it or not. I will not get into all the racial traumas that I experienced. Okay, so the next one says, work, school, church, stores, events, magazine, TV, movies look like this. But hey, who's noticing? But what about us? Let's not make this about race. And this is just sort of a play on when you are underrepresented or you are the only one, you do feel this way. And unfortunately, some ignorant or racist people may respond this way, and it's just a very selfish way of responding. You know, no one else matters but me. Why do you care? You know, it's always so easy for the one that doesn't have to ever experience this to respond and say, let's not make this about race. It's always like, to me, what makes you even qualified to even understand what this feels like, much less to draw the conclusion that something should or should not be about race when you don't experience these things. Legal immigration only is a depiction of the US being in different circumstances, and then I would say that the swimmers that you see trying to swim represent migrating to another country, are facing opposition and are being told to turn back and to come legally. Even though in the picture, they're not really in a situation or in a position to come legally. It's obviously a matter of kind of life and death. And this is just to sort of depict the racist people that haven't the slightest clue, are so against immigrants. I think that for me, they can try to sugarcoat all they want and say it's not about racism and it's about coming here legally, but I think many of us know at this point that is not what really bothers you. We've even had white immigrants that have spoken out publicly, even they acknowledge and agree that this issue is racism and not illegal immigration, because they themselves came illegally and have been in the country illegally and openly speak out about it and have never ever had any issues whatsoever, as they have acknowledged, because they are white. How would you feel if you were in the situation of life or death, and that if you were treated this way and told to go back to your country and come illegally? Obviously, if your country is being destroyed, you're not gonna have internet and your house will be destroyed, so you're really in survival mode, and the legal process at that point is really not even an option. It's life or death. And I just think these kinds of ignorant people, they don't care about that. They don't want to care, and they don't want to understand. Unfortunately, there's too many people still like that. When it comes to a lot of these photos, there's probably a lot of white people that never even remotely thought about what if things were this way for me. And it's interesting. I mean, it definitely shows, I mean, we wake up to a complete different life experience, and this is one of those things that we don't really have a choice. Yes, we can speak out and try to advocate for ourselves, but life can already be exhausting when you go through certain things that you can't control. One of the worst things about it is to feel like you have to. This stuff does affect different people in different ways. There are many factors that play a role into what people experience and how they internalize it. I mean, someone who is the only Black person in school or in a town, or the only Black family in a town or in a school, versus someone that's maybe born and raised in New York City, where you have a melting pot and a blend of all kinds of skin color shades and cultures. Not to say that every place has some sort of issue, but in these types of places, I think people will be more desensitized to cultural or racial differences, whereas someone growing up in a town where they're the only brown person in that town, and growing up with kids that may have ignorant or racist parents, and they kind of absorb and adopt these views, you're just going to be receiving all that and you will internalize all of it. So it really depends. And then there are some Black or mixed people that they may express and say, oh, I've never experienced racism. And again, there's so many layers in that. You have some people that are just in denial and they just don't want to accept or believe it for a number of different psychological reasons. You have some Black people that they want to be white so bad that there's like mental illness and they don't want to acknowledge or accept the experiences that they actually have been through. There are some people that maybe they do that and make everything about race, but the thing is, you don't know what kind of racial trauma they experienced, and also every individual is different. There are a lot of covert and subtle things, but when you have a lot of little things happening repeatedly that pile up, it does become a big thing and it doesn't feel good. But at the end of the day, what does feel good is when people are aware and are understanding of something that you have or are experiencing. Or also it feels good to have someone stand up for you. And so that's what makes these types of conversations important. And that's why it's important to become more aware and to educate yourself, to be more open and accepting of other people. I hope that you learn something new and that this may allow you to have more empathy for other people and to maybe even connect on deeper levels with people who are different from you. I hope you enjoyed this video, and remember, be kind to other people. You never know what they are going through.